Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our video series about stakeholders in orthography development. In the previous video, we talked about some types of stakeholders, the community in general, local leaders, and local language speakers. But in this video, we want to talk about some others, such as the linguist researcher, national and local governments, and local teachers and religious leaders. All stakeholders have a role to play, and if you are involved in developing an orthography, it is worth the time to think about who the stakeholders are. Who needs to be involved? Who just needs to be kept informed?
Let's talk first about the linguist researcher. This is someone who investigates the language, finding out how it works, what the consonants and vowels and tones are, and this knowledge feeds into the orthography. 20 years ago, this linguist would almost always have been an outsider, not a native speaker of the language. But today, there are 3 types of linguist. There is the native speaker linguist, there is the linguist who comes from another country altogether, and there is also the linguist who is from within that country and may even be a native speaker of a different minority language. So let's keep all of these types of linguists in mind.
So, what does a linguist, either a local speaker or an outsider, bring to the task of orthography development?
The obvious main answer for all of these is linguistic knowledge and background. Their training gives them knowledge about how languages work. It also gives them a methodology, how to investigate a language.
What are some differences between these types of linguists?
An outside linguist brings an outsider's perspective. First, she can see more of the whole picture, not just a small local bit. An outside linguist can have an objective view of the language being studied. Second, as an outsider, the linguist can be a neutral person for settling differences of opinion. Yes, there will be differences of opinion. Finally, an outside linguist can connect with resources outside the community that would help the project. Maybe computer tools, or organizational methods, or even an outside research community.
I'm guessing there are some challenges, right?
Yes, occasionally outside linguists experience challenges that are unique to their outsider status. Connection with outside resources can help, as we mentioned, but it can also create pressure to rush through a project faster than is ideal. Also, an outsider can be ignorant about the needs of the community, especially of cultural values that might influence orthography development. Finally, outside linguists may not be able to speak the local language well. So it is a bigger challenge for them to communicate and connect directly with local people.
It seems like a local speaker linguist would not have this particular challenge, since they can speak the language well. What else should we know about local speaker linguists?
Yes, as a member of the community himself, he would be able to automatically avoid some cultural traps. He also has a huge advantage in being a native speaker himself, and being able to talk to people in their own language fluently. However, as a native of the community, he will also have some community responsibilities that an outsider does not have. This will help in acceptability of the orthography, but it is a challenge because it can take time away from the other tasks of orthography development.
What role, if any, do governments play in orthography development?
It can be a lot or nothing. Most of the time we are talking about a national government because that is where policy decisions are made. Some governments have a very keen interest in orthography for unwritten languages, but others don't get involved at all. In some cases, any new orthography must be approved by a government agency. Other countries may have a list of specific symbols you can use, and you can't add to these. Government policies can change, so it's good to know what the current policies are, not what someone told you 10 years ago.
What are some issues when interacting with governments?
There are some positive sides to government policies. In an unusually good case, a government may actually provide resources, even funding, to help in orthography development and the literacy that will follow. Another benefit that governments could offer would be formal recognition of an orthography on the local or the national level. This could take the shape of official permission to use the orthography at local schools, for example. Sometimes there are challenges in working with the government as a stakeholder. If orthography guidelines are overly strict, this may hamper the development of the orthography. But there may sometimes be a bright side to such strict guidelines. For example, if you are trying to decide on one symbol versus another one, government policy may have already decided it, and this means that you do not have to spend time and energy arguing about it. These policies may not always be helpful. Here's a specific example. If the list of allowed symbols does not include one to represent a particular sound in your language, then that is a problem. It may be possible to appeal to the government, but in some cases you may just have to settle for a less than ideal orthography.
We also mentioned teachers and religious leaders. Can you talk about what roles they play?
The last kind of stakeholder we want to talk about is teachers and religious leaders from the outside who are now living in the community. These would be pastors, priests, and others. Like the other stakeholders, there is great potential for positive impact and potential for challenges too. For one thing, religious leaders and teachers can be great advocates in the community for learning to write at all. This is because they are usually educated and they see the value of reading. Also, they can help with testing orthographies. Both teachers and religious leaders have people they lead, and their congregation or their students are natural subjects for testing the orthography.
These teachers and religious leaders sound like they can be really helpful.
Definitely. As with other stakeholders, there are challenges to keep in mind. Both teachers and religious leaders may not value the local language much. Teachers may be so focused on teaching the national language that they see the local language as a barrier to learning and to advancement. They may not see writing the local language as a positive thing for the community. Likewise, if a particular religion is expressed in one particular language or a particular script, some of the religious leaders may want to focus on reading in that language or that script and not the local one. If this is the case, it may be helpful to discuss this particular point with them. That is, reading is only learned once. The skills of reading, knowing that a letter stands for a sound, and that reading starts at the top of a page, and so forth, these are skills you only learn once. It is much easier to learn these skills if you are doing it in your own language. And so, learning to read in your own language will actually be a good bridge towards learning to read in another language. Finally, teachers may be using rote memorization for their classes and not be familiar with any other way of teaching. They may be even hostile toward other teaching methods. This probably would come up more in literacy materials rather than orthography development, but it's a good idea to be aware of this possibility from the beginning.
We hope that these videos on stakeholders have given you a better understanding of why it's really important to think first about who your stakeholders are, and secondly, why it's important to interact with all of them. They can offer real help in determining the usability of an orthography, which asks, can people actually use it? They can also really help in determining the acceptability of an orthography, which asks, will people actually want to use it? Because of this, it is worth investing in these relationships and getting to know your stakeholders. It is also important to have them involved as much as possible and to take their contributions very seriously.